Welcome to Finland, the black sheep of the Nordic countries. Finland is statistically the blondest country on Earth. Walk through Helsinki or any small Finnish town and you'll see it everywhere. Blonde hair, pale blue eyes, fair skin that barely sees the sun for half the year. As Nordic as it gets. And yet, Finnish people don't speak a Germanic language. They don't speak an Indo-European language at all. Finnish belongs to the Uralic language family. To understand this, we need to start with the language itself. Finnish is part of the Uralic language family. This family also includes Estonian, the Sami languages spoken across northern Scandinavia, Hungarian far to the south, and dozens of smaller languages scattered across Siberia. Languages like Khanty, Mansi, Nenets, and Selkup. The original homeland of this language family is believed to lie somewhere in the region of the Ural Mountains and western Siberia, possibly near the confluence of the Ob and Irtysh rivers. These were absolutely not Indo-European speakers. While most of Europe was adopting languages descended from Proto-Indo-European, the ancestor of English, Russian, Hindi, Latin, and Greek, the Uralic speakers maintained a completely separate linguistic tradition, one that had thrived in the boreal forests and tundra of northern Eurasia for thousands of years. Now here's where the story gets really interesting. To explain how a Siberian language ended up in Finland, we need to look at what was happening in Central and Inner Asia during the Bronze Age. The hypothesis, which is increasingly supported by archaeological and genetic evidence, goes something like this. Very early Indo-European peoples, likely pastoralists from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, the same broad group that would eventually give rise to the Indo-Iranian, Celtic, Germanic, and Slavic language families, pushed eastward into Siberia thousands of years ago. They were mobile, horse-riding peoples who brought with them steppe traditions, animal husbandry, and early metalworking knowledge. As they moved east, they encountered populations with deep East Asian ancestry, peoples who had inhabited Siberia and the regions stretching toward Mongolia and Manchuria for millennia. At the same time, groups from Central Asia were also converging on this same broad region. What emerged from this three-way convergence was something entirely new. From the west came the Indo-European steppe peoples with their pastoral traditions. From the Far East came populations carrying Y chromosome haplogroup N, a paternal lineage that originated in Northeast Asia, likely somewhere near modern-day China or Mongolia, and had been spreading northward through Siberia for thousands of years. And from the center came additional groups with their own cultural and genetic heritage. Together, these diverse peoples forged one of the most remarkable and mysterious cultures of the Bronze Age, the Seima-Turbino phenomenon. The Seima-Turbino culture dates to roughly 2200 to 1700 BCE. It's named after two key archaeological sites in Russia, Seima, near Nizhny Novgorod, and Turbino, near Perm. What defined this culture was its extraordinary metalworking. The Seima-Turbino people produced sophisticated bronze weapons, socketed spearheads, daggers, and axes, along with ornate tools and decorative objects using advanced casting techniques. Their metallurgy drew on traditions from multiple regions. Some techniques show clear connections to the Altai Mountains and the Minusins Basin in southern Siberia, areas with strong East Asian cultural ties. Others show links to the Western steppe traditions. But what made the Seima-Turbino phenomenon truly extraordinary was the speed and scale of its spread. Archaeological evidence shows that Seima-Turbino-style artifacts appeared across an enormous geographic range in what seems like a remarkably short period of time, from the Altai Mountains and the forests of western Siberia all the way to Finland, the Baltic coast, and even into Scandinavia. This wasn't a slow, gradual diffusion. It looks like a rapid cultural expansion driven by a mobile, militarily capable, and technologically advanced elite. They moved along river systems, traded extensively, and left their distinctive bronze artifacts scattered across thousands of miles. And this is where Haplogroup N becomes central to the story. The hypothesis suggests that within this multicultural, multi-ethnic Seima-Turbino network, the ruling elite increasingly became associated with Y chromosome haplogroup N, the East Asian paternal lineage. How exactly this happened is still debated. Perhaps carriers of Haplogroup N held military prestige within the network. Perhaps they controlled key aspects of the bronze trade or metallurgical knowledge. Perhaps social hierarchy and marriage patterns over generations concentrated this lineage among the leadership class. Whatever the mechanism, the evidence suggests that as the Seima-Turbino cultural sphere expanded westward and northwestward, carriers of Haplogroup N were at the forefront. And they carried with them not just their genes, but the Uralic languages that had developed within or been adopted by this cultural sphere. The distribution of Haplogroup N across modern populations supports this. It's not just Finns. The Sami people of northern Scandinavia, who also speak Uralic languages, have very high frequencies of Haplogroup N. So do Estonians. So do many Siberian peoples who speak Uralic or related languages. In Finland specifically, over 60% of men carry Haplogroup N, making it the dominant paternal lineage by a wide margin. It's a lineage that unambiguously traces back to Northeast Asia, and its geographic distribution maps remarkably well onto the spread of Uralic languages. When these Seima-Turbino associated groups reached what is now Finland, they didn't arrive in empty territory. The land was already inhabited by descendants of ancient European hunter-gatherers, the so-called Western hunter-gatherers and Scandinavian hunter-gatherers. These were people whose ancestors had colonized northern Europe after the retreat of the glaciers at the end of the last ice age, over 10,000 years ago. Over those millennia in the extreme northern environment, natural selection had favored certain physical traits. Light skin to maximize vitamin D production from scarce sunlight. Blue eyes, possibly through sexual selection or genetic drift. And blonde hair, the trait that makes modern Finns the blondest population on Earth. These adaptations took thousands of years to become fixed in the population. The arrival of the Uralic speakers didn't wipe out these hunter-gatherers. This wasn't a replacement event. Instead, it was a process of mixing, cultural adoption, and gradual integration over many generations. The newcomers brought their language, which eventually replaced whatever the previous inhabitants spoke. They brought their culture and social structures, and critically, they brought their Y chromosome lineage, Haplogroup N. But the existing population contributed enormously to the overall gene pool. Maternal lineages, tracked through mitochondrial DNA in modern Finns, are overwhelmingly European. Autosomal DNA, the bulk of the genome that determines most of our physical traits, is also predominantly of European origin. This is why modern Finns look the way they do: blonde, blue-eyed, pale-skinned, despite carrying a paternal lineage from the other side of the continent. This pattern, where the Y chromosome tells one story and the rest of the genome tells another, is something we see repeatedly in human history. It's often the signature of a small but dominant male elite imposing their language and culture on a larger existing population while intermarrying extensively with local women. The Viking expansion, the Bantu migration in Africa, the Indo-European spread itself all show similar genetic patterns. In Finland's case, the Seima-Turbino associated Uralic speakers appear to have been that elite. It's a striking paradox when you lay it all out. The paternal line tells a story of East Asian origins. Haplogroup N, born somewhere in the vicinity of Mongolia or Manchuria, spreading through Siberia. The maternal lines and the autosomal genome tell a story of deep European roots. Hunter-gatherers adapted to the Arctic light over 10,000 years. And the language tells a story of Siberia, Uralic, born near the Ural Mountains, carried westward by Bronze Age warriors and traders. All three threads, paternal, maternal, and linguistic, come together in modern Finland, weaving a tapestry that is far more complex and far more interesting than any simple origin story could capture. So the next time you picture Finland, don't just think of saunas and snow. Think of Bronze Age warriors riding along Siberian rivers with advanced weapons the world had never seen. Think of ancient hunters, blonde and blue-eyed, watching the northern lights from the shores of frozen lakes. Think of a language that traveled thousands of miles from the forests of Siberia to find its permanent home in the north. And think about how human identity, what we look like, what we speak, where our ancestors came from, is never just one story. It's always many stories, layered on top of each other, converging from different directions. Finland is living proof that genetics, language, and appearance can each tell a very different chapter of the same extraordinary story.